You're watching Analysts After Dark, an underground hideaway where insatiably curious analysts examine provocative project problems, share salacious secrets, and establish a covert network of co-conspirators. Step into the dark with your hosts, AJ Hawley and Steve Jones.
Hello.
Hey, Steve.
Some nice mellow music to kick off the new year.
That's right. How's it going?
Fantastic. It's a good start. Had a little weather, but I'm more interested in getting things done. What do you have for resolutions?
That's your resolution to get things done?
A little bit more than that.
Okay.
What do you have?
So actually, that was mine last year. It was to, we'll call it get stuff done. And I did. I felt like I don't really do resolutions, but more so themes. So this year's is craftsmanship. So it's to basically take all the things that I did last year and then do them better this year.
Kick them up a notch. Nice.
Yeah. Do you have anything specific that you're looking for?
A little bit more than themes. So for me, it's deliver on what I started last year. So I've got a couple workshops I'm doing, traveling for the conference this year. That'll be fun. Doing some basement infrastructure updates.
Okay.
Lighting. My basement is always a work in progress, as you know. And working on really trying to figure out more with AI and how I can use it. I've used it for silly things. We have lunchtime trivia at work where I use that to help create the questions and the categories and fun avatars, but nothing as far as real useful stuff. So on top of that, try to get into doing some of the automation. So the workshop that you have on automation was fantastic. So I want to try to actually use some of that.
Then I think you'll like today's guest. So she knows all about AI.
Fantastic.
So we have Amber Mack with us today. Amber Mack is a best-selling author, award-winning podcaster, keynote speaker, and president of Amber Mack Media, Inc., which would be weird if she wasn't president of Amber Mack Media, right?
Yeah.
It'd be strange. So it's her company's. Yeah. Anyway, she's the co-host of the weekly emerging radio show and podcast, The Feed, on SiriusXM. Amber has keynoted more than 500 events around the world and has moderated sessions with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, former FBI Director James Comey, business coach Tony Robbins, and famed astronaut Chris Hadfield, and many other notable leaders. Which, have you seen Chris Hadfield's? I think he did. Is it Space Oddity? In space, he brought his guitar. It's one of my favorite YouTube videos. Yeah, phenomenal. In 2010, she wrote the national best-selling business book, Power Friending. Actually, I have a copy of that. And in 2016, she co-wrote the Amazon bestseller, Outsmarting Your Kids Online. She's a regular business host and expert for Fast Company, CNN, Bloomberg, CBS, BNN, CTV, The Marilyn Dennis Show, and SiriusXM. And then now Analysts After Dark, which I feel like probably the most notable of those listed for sure.
This is the pinnacle right here.
Without further ado, let's welcome Amber Mack.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being here. This is going to be a fun show. I already know it.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I love, I'm such a fan of live streaming production, and you do such a good job. So it's super exciting just to finally see you in action and be on the show, and looking forward to it. And I'm hoping I can bring some fun to the show.
I can guarantee that you will do that. Although we do start out asking all of our guests, I say all of our guests, most of our guests, because sometimes we forget, but what their favorite After Dark activity is. And do you recall what you had put for yours?
I just said sleeping, because that's what you're supposed to do at night.
Sure. That's the most fun thing, or your favorite After Dark activity is sleeping?
Yeah, like when the sun goes down and it's dark outside, you should be getting ready for bed. At least that's how I live my exciting and engaging life. So that seemed like a natural thing. What about you guys? What do you like to do?
So one of my favorite things is to sit back here in this chair, listen to some music, and have a glass of scotch. It's one of my favorite things.
I tend to do a little gaming, or one of the things I'm doing lately is watching or listening to YouTube music at double speed.
Oh, so why at double speed?
I like up tempo. So
Oh.
double speed just makes that much more fun. And it doesn't sound like chipmunks, but it makes it more fun.
Okay. So that is something I have never done. So I have to try that.
I'll listen to some of the training and things like that at double speed, right? If people are talking really slow, I'll listen to that faster, but not music. That seems weird to me.
Everyone to each their own.
Fair.
So there was a TSO channel on YouTube that was 24/7, just Christmas music that Trans-Siberian Orchestra played. I would have that in the background at double speed. So I got to listen to their entire catalog 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
So I would do that just so it got done twice as fast, right? That's how I feel about Christmas music, but that's my own thing.
I don't feel so badly anymore for saying that sleeping is my thing.
I wish it wasn't as common of an answer. I think the last 4 or 5 guests that we've had on, I've all said sleeping. And I just think it's probably because they're doing 10 different things at the same time, right? So they're running their own business or they're doing all these other things and they're like, all I want is some freaking sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, if you're a parent, right? I mean, I think that's
Fair.
part of it too, right? You get to the point where there's nothing better at night than just kind of putting your head on the pillow and going to sleep. So if I have to think about, I'm trying to think about anything else I do after dark that is kind of fun, but I'm pretty tame, but I'm not tame because I don't have options. I mean, I could be more fun, but I'm tame because I've engineered my life to be safe and tame. So I have chosen that path. There's a difference there, I think.
Like it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of planning in between.
Exactly.
Steve was mentioning that he was looking to get more into AI. You talk a lot about AI in your newsletter and on different shows that you are part of on the feed for sure. So what tips and tricks do you have right now? What's the newest most fun a bit of information that we have around AI? Like what are you passionate about right now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, obviously, for so many of us, generative AI continues to be such a massive space in terms of experimenting with artificial intelligence. And there's just so much we can do out there in terms of creating content with the power of AI and using different tools. Sorry, I just dropped my phone, but everything's okay. I think, when it comes to some of the tools that I use, one of the things I'm playing around with a lot is Opus Clips, which is really a fun tool. You've probably used it already, but just to be able to see how seamlessly you're able to upload a longer video and get a bunch of different vertical videos for social media, and it kind of rates them. I think these are the types of tools that honestly, I just used it yesterday and it probably saves in some cases hours and hours of your time. That's just one of many that I'm trying out on a regular basis. It's not like AI can replace everything in our day to day, but I think you find these little corners of your world where AI can really remove some of those more mundane tasks, like picking clips from a longer video. It's pretty straightforward. Adding captions, I don't need to spend a lot of time doing that. And when the tools get really good, it helps all of us to be more productive and spend time doing those things that we perhaps like to do more.
I actually use it for this show, to be honest.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It was one of the things that I was spending every either Saturday or Sunday, probably 6 hours going through this, picking out the different pieces, going in, adding captions, adding questions in between. And I think I picked this up from your newsletter, to be honest, and changed my life immediately, where I was like, oh, I just saved 6 hours through here. And then I have more cuts, and it does it in like segments that you can pick too. So I'll do the 30 to 60-second segments because that counts as a YouTube short. I can add that up and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's so powerful. And I think the thing that kind of blows me away, and one of the reasons, I mentioned sometimes tools that people know have been out for a few months, is that people will try them when they first come out and they think, oh, that's not right for me, or it wasn't accurate. But I really want to encourage people, when you're thinking about new tools, if you try it out the first time and maybe you think, hey, it made some mistakes, it really wasn't that helpful, don't discount it altogether. Because I think what we see in this space is that within a few months, many of these tools have improved so massively that they're able to do so much more. Like, I would even argue with Opus Clips that when it does the captioning for your videos, it's incredibly accurate. That kind of blew me away, because I use lots of different captioning tools, whether it's for audio from my podcast or any other type of videos. And I do have to do a lot of editing. Even, I mean, guys, you'll probably agree with me with this, but even if you're using built-in captioning tools within the Meta universe, like on Instagram, for example, they're always making mistakes. But Opus Clips is incredibly accurate, and I find it even more so. So I think people have to sort of experiment a lot with AI and try tools out, and maybe, give them a few weeks, try it again, see what they've added, because there's just so much absolute growth in this area.
I think it's
It gives
using
us the
the.
opportunity to learn.
Go ahead, Steve.
It gives us the opportunity to learn how to utilize the tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the exciting part, right? Is that you start to kind of uncover many of these tools and technologies that are so helpful, and then sort of play around and experiment, figure out new ways to use them. For example, I'm using ChatGPT with my son to help him create study quizzes for his exams that are coming up. Now, fun story. I thought I was brilliant, because this was a really fun way to actually create a quiz, and ChatGPT was really good at it. So, I went in and put in all these prompts, put in his study notes, was helping him work on it, and then outputted everything. And then he was actually taking the quiz. We dropped it into a form builder. And then I was watching him do it, and I was looking at it, and I was like, every single answer is B. Like, 30 plus answers were B. So ChatGPT made the quiz, but I guess I had to put in the prompt that I didn't want every single answer to be the same letter or the same sequence. It just wasn't intelligent enough to know that. And I just found it sort of one of those moments where you realize, okay, we still need humans absolutely in the mix.
I did have a professor do that one time, where they had all of the same, or I think a whole section, and it was B, 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 B. And you're like, this can't be the same answer again. I must be picking the wrong things, just to psych people out.
Yeah.
It was kind of mean, but
That's kind of mean. Yeah,
That's
that's
so funny.
a nice thing to do, because people, it's not what we expect, right? We have certain expectations about quizzes, that it will be overly random in terms of multiple choice, and that kind of throws you off. So I thought that was sort of a funny example of improving your prompts with ChatGPT, because I would never have thought, if I asked for help to create a quiz with multiple choice answers, that it would give you the same letter of an answer over and over and over and over again. But apparently you do need to add in that prompt.
you have to tell it to distribute it normally, like the answers
Yeah.
normally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting tip for sure. It's
Yeah,
one
it's
of
like,
those things.
That's so funny.
it was funny. I mean, and I think that the more you start using some of these AI tools, you start to recognize that they're not necessarily entirely replacing things that you do in your day to day, but they are an aid, right? They can help. I mean, the term co-pilot, of course, is so common in our world. And I think that's exactly it, right? It's a tool that you can work with it and alongside it. But if you sort of let it run on its own, it doesn't really have the outcome that you would want necessarily. So we still have quite a bit of work to do there.
Agreed. I think that there's a lot of that, especially when Copilot first came out, they had been pitching this as, oh, you can just have it run side by side. And I know Microsoft has invested a lot of money into Copilot. It's been one of the things that they have said it's going to be in everything. So it's going to be in your Microsoft 365 environment, on every application that you use. It's going to be part of their business applications. It's part of literally everything. So I think that when it first was released or announced, it was pretty new and buggy. And so just like you said, it was, okay, this isn't going to be a lot of help. And then in the last 2 months, it's increased, and last month it's increased. So I think they announced it first November as saying that this is going to be something that's widely available for everybody. And then now within just a couple of weeks, it is profoundly better.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see. They even had the announcement recently over the past few days that they're adding a co-pilot button to many of their new keyboards on their newer machines. And I thought that was kind of an interesting example of their, to your point, their commitment to artificial intelligence and to co-pilot, to see them actually update the keyboard that hasn't been updated for many, many years. And it just goes to show you how important AI is. I mean, we're just on the heels of CES launching in Las Vegas, and I was describing the news I was seeing coming out of CES to someone today, and just saying, like, it's just AI. Like, everybody's just announcing, we're AI first, we're AI everywhere. You can't kind of get away from it. So I think that's a bit of an awakening to a lot of people who have maybe held off from incorporating AI into their day-to-day.
So do you see that changing from when AX came out? So augmented reality, right? Or AR came out, not AX, AR. That was one of the things that everybody was pitching, and people in Silicon Valley were like, yes, AR is going to be everywhere. We're going to do that. And a lot of people invested in it, but it kind of went up real quick and then came back down. And I don't see that happening with AI really at all, where it's here to stay. And people, like you said, Microsoft changed their keyboard layout for the first time in 30 years, which is crazy. They've also invested in, like, everything's going to have it. Notepad is going to have it. So like, that's one of the weird things where they haven't updated Notepad in forever, but yeah, it's going to have an AI component.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think, to your point, you look at augmented reality and you look at virtual reality. I mean, these are both technologies that I have certainly covered for many years. I've experimented with the technology, but I've never really had that experience where I thought it would necessarily be mainstream. It always felt to me like, okay, there are applications for this in certain areas. Training's a great example, right? Like, you don't want to give every new pilot who's in training a brand new plane to fly. Virtual reality is such a great way for them to go through that training process. Same thing with surgeons. Lots of applications for that technology, but I've never seen it hit that tipping point where it's so mainstream that we're kind of walking around using these tools. And I think the only exception to that, I don't think there's one necessarily with virtual reality, but with augmented reality, Pokemon Go, right? You remember the year of Pokemon Go and how popular it was. That was the only kind of breakthrough moment, really, with augmented reality. But since then, there hasn't been a lot that has really prompted this wide scale reaction and adoption the way that we've seen with artificial intelligence.
I know Microsoft had like the HoloLens that they were pitching, and I think that they just rolled that back a little bit in the last 6 weeks. So they kind of said, well, this was our investment in augmented reality. We're going to take that, and it just didn't kick off the way that they thought it was going to. So I think that they've recapped some of that investment.
I think one of the things too that you do end up getting with all sorts of technology is that when something becomes integrated into our lives that is so seamless and almost invisible, it tends to be something that is more widely adopted, right? And I think AI feels like that. People didn't even know that they were using AI tools when they perhaps had them everywhere in their homes, like smart speakers, for example, or voice assistants on their phones. They never thought, I'm already using AI, it's already here, right? They didn't have that reaction. And that's one of the things I think we've seen over the past couple of years, is that AI truly is everywhere. We're using it in all areas of our lives, but there's no real massive learning curve, right? Whereas if you think about something like virtual reality, there's those barriers that do exist. Like, okay, what hardware do I use? What services do I use to buy subscriptions to play certain games, or in training, you need specific software. But with AI, I think that the low cost of access to many of these tools and technologies makes them so accessible for so many people that we do see that widespread adoption. And that's when a technology like AI can be truly transformational for not just individuals, but for businesses and beyond. It has an impact that I think none of us have really seen with technology for many, many years, really kind of since the internet.
So, Steve, you had mentioned that you wanted to learn a little bit more about AI and start using that in your daily practice. What areas do you find that AI could help you as an analyst?
That's my question.
Okay.
That's really the question itself, is what can I do? I know there's lots of different things, but really it's trying to figure out, as a business analyst, how can I utilize it? What different tasks can I do to help? I know we have requirements, traceability. As long as you get the tags right, you can do all kinds of traceability and reporting. But what other things can I do? That's really the thing to investigate. I don't really know all the different things that are possible, and really just trying to figure out what individual tasks could I do to leverage AI.
There's a tool called Rationale. Have you heard of that, Amber?
No, I have not.
So it's rationale.jina.ai. So it's
Okay.
a really cool tool. I'll put it in the chat here. But if you want to talk about doing AI decision making, it's got SWOT analysis. It's got all sorts of different things. I'll toss it in the chat. It's got an API for that as well. So there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with that apply specifically to analysis. I
Very
think
cool.
we could check out.
I
But
think too, like Steve, one of the things I think a lot of people will end up doing, whatever sector you work in, is to start kind of paying attention to some of the tools that you use already, some of the software you use on a regular basis. And I think what you'll see is that maybe you don't have to go out and seek out new AI tools, but much of that AI will be built into the things that you already use, right? A great example of this, AJ, I know you've seen me speak a number of times, but I always talk about my Whoop band. I do not work for this company, and unfortunately, I pay a lot every month to subscribe. But it's interesting. I've had this Whoop band for a long time to get analytics about my sleep and my strain and all those details. I didn't buy it because it's an AI tool in terms of software that does any type of or has any type of AI functionality. But just a few months ago, they built in an AI feature with ChatGPT so that I'm able to go in and actually within the app ask certain questions about my health, and in terms of, hey, what should I do if I'm going on a long trip and I'm going to be not getting a lot of sleep on an overnight flight based on some of my data. So they've built in ChatGPT to be kind of this personal assistant that is powered by AI. It's nothing I bought it for, but it is just kind of there. And Steve, I feel like you're going to start to see that maybe if you have a list of some of the software tools you use already. If you follow those companies on social media, start paying attention to the ones that are really innovating, and those are those tools that you will want to perhaps use more or invest more in. And it's those companies that you see not really actually innovating and taking those opportunities that do exist that you may want to back away from a little bit. So to me, it feels like we're going to start to see AI just, it's going to be ubiquitous, right? And it will probably be true that in the coming couple of years, there won't be a lot of things that we use on a regular basis that are digital in essence, that don't have some type of AI connection to them. And that will just be the reality that we're all living in.
That works.
That sounded kind of like a little bit sad in terms of the future, but I think it's happening quickly.
Well, I think that kind of begs the next question, and then one from our audience. So, do you have any concerns about ChatGPT, AI, and privacy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been very critical over the past few years of some of the big tech players in terms of them having kind of slippery ethics as far as how they run their businesses. I think sometimes that can leak into the area of privacy as well, in terms of them not really protecting our privacy as much as they should be. If you look at OpenAI and, of course, its most popular tool, ChatGPT, and you think about the privacy issues in terms of how your data is stored, think about the relationship that that organization has had with using data from individuals and organizations without permission, right? If
Sure.
they're that loose with how they're actually training their large data models, it sort of makes me wonder how safe my data is with them, because I'm not the New York Times. I'm just one person. And so I think what we see is this sort of race out there where every company in the AI space wants to be able to be the biggest and be the best and be the fastest and go the furthest. I think there's going to be a lot of people who get hurt along the way, and we don't have the regulation necessarily just yet to protect all of us. So I think, just to answer that really great question that was just on the screen, I think the answer is yes. It absolutely does concern me, and I'm sometimes less hopeful than I wish I were, as far as the leaders that we have in this AI space.
I know that you
Treading
had
with caution.
a guest on your most recent episode of The Feed talk about that, right? You had it was an attorney, I believe, that was talking about privacy and saying that technology is changing so much faster than laws and regulations could even possibly change. So there's some blanket protections out there that say, don't use this in a criminal way, but even then, that's something that can be argued away. Like, well, it wasn't criminal intent; it was something that happened, and it ended up being criminal, but the intent wasn't there. I think that was the argument that gentleman was sharing.
Yeah, that's something that I think is going to be really concerning in the future. Or maybe the excuse is, oh, my AI deepfake actually did that or said that. My digital twin, my avatar. I mean, who knows what the excuses will be in the future? But I certainly don't think that we have the regulations in place that we need in this space. And also because it's overly complex, right? I mean, things have been moving so quickly. How could anyone anticipate what was going to happen or what was around the corner? It's not like the same sort of regulation that you would have with, say, infrastructure like highways, where okay, it's going to take you a really long time to build this highway. So I can wrap my head around this idea of, okay, what should the speed limit be? I can base it on other highways. We have decades and decades of history. We know there's a limit to how fast cars go. We don't have those same limitations when it comes to AI regulation. So you need really smart people who are in charge of regulation. And of course, it comes down to many of our government leaders. Well, the best people in tech aren't necessarily going into government, right? That's just not the path they follow. They're going to work for OpenAI. And so I think we're in a situation right now that there's just a real gap that exists. And the only place where we see any type of meaningful regulation around artificial intelligence is in the European Union with the recent AI Act. So they're a little bit ahead of where we are here in North America. And I think we probably have a long way to go.
And it might be the combination of the AI Act and the GDPR combination that reins them in a little bit. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I mean, I think it is a good thing that we do have some leadership in this space, right? There is some thinking, there's some thoughtfulness, there's leadership around this space in terms of AI regulation, but it's not enough just for the EU to be focusing on these issues. And I do think obviously there'll be more happening in this part of the world, but I would worry a little bit about how ahead we're able to stay in terms of the threats that do exist, even on the synthetic content side of things. Like, I'm really excited to use generative AI in my business in lots of creative ways in terms of creating content. But I recognize at the same time that things like deep fakes, being able to manipulate someone's image, this presents a whole bunch of challenges and is an absolute threat to democracy. So there are these risks that go hand in hand with much of this emerging technology, especially with the pace that things are going.
And leadership is fine as long as there's also a healthy dose of ethics included in that. And leadership at tech companies and politicians, ethics don't always factor in, sadly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is it feels like it's sort of a rudderless ship right now, and I don't know. I mean, if you think about leadership in business in general, there are these moments of hope that we will have sometimes when we see a leader doing something that is really absolutely ethically sound and for the betterment of society in general. But that doesn't translate that often into the tech industry. We don't have that necessarily. There's some standouts there, certainly with some of some larger companies. I do see, like Microsoft, for example, doesn't have the same, in my opinion, doesn't have the same sort of slippery rules in play that some of the younger tech companies would have. And I just think we need more in that space in terms of sound leadership.
Yeah, and I know I was having a conversation with was in Vancouver in November with a few people that were residents of Canada, and they're talking about how boring the politics are in Canada. They're saying it's so boring. We watch yours just for entertainment, and we were having some very candid conversation around leadership, et cetera. But I think with the aging politicians that we have, and we have quite a few who are octogenarians that are in there making decisions on that, and it's like, I don't know that if I gave my grandmother, and I love her dearly, but if I gave her a tech AI quiz, I don't know that she'd be able to answer those same questions in the same way that somebody that would be our age would be able to answer faster, or somebody even younger, right?
I think that's an issue, and I think again, I think that there's real awful consequences to that in terms of how do you actually develop policy with AI in mind if you don't understand exactly how it works. But I mean, I think we're talking specifically about the insides of artificial intelligence and kind of the impact on society, but truthfully, if you think about any type of government policy over the years when it comes to digital strategy, I think overall it hasn't been a place that government has necessarily been able to thrive as successfully as perhaps they should. But maybe it does mean that we need sort of this changeover in our leadership, where it's kind of younger people who are those digital first users who understand this space intimately, who will go into politics with that knowledge ingrained because they've always lived in this world. And you can see the next generation, this would be something that all of them are going to understand AI. They've been using it since they were little kids.
Yeah. We have one question here on. So what about your recent stat that by 2030 there will be more synthetic data than real data in AI models?
Yeah, so that is a stat that was put out by NVIDIA, and Chris, who is my business partner, life partner, who's behind the scenes right now doing all the production, he's the one who found that story. And I don't know, sometimes you read a story and it just really sticks with you, and you look at a stat like that and you think, okay, right now we're so concerned, as we should be, about how these large data models are being trained. Like, where are they getting the data from? Who owns the copyright? And what's happening in between? And how does everybody get paid? And all of these issues. But what happens, to your point of that stat from NVIDIA, when in 2030 there is the pendulum has swung to the point where all of the large AI models are being trained on synthetic data, or overwhelmingly so is probably a better term, then that begs the question of, like, what is truth and what is real? I mean, it does concern me to the point that I think it will be just a really, really different world. Many people talk about the post-truth era. It used to be, of course, that anything we saw, we would believe what we see, right? Like, I know you guys are there, like Steve and AJ. I know you're real humans. I see you move. I see your faces. But it's not out of the question that if we were doing this in 2030, that these would be avatars that we maybe just programmed, and we were maybe typing stuff into a computer, and we weren't here at all. Maybe we were, out enjoying a drink or at a pub, whatever that might be. I don't feel like that future is that far off. And when that happens, what happens to trust, right? And trust is something we all rely on in our day to day. And there's this chipping away or erosion of trust all the time. And so when we get to this point where there's so much synthetic content, what do we believe and what do we know to be true? These are big questions we need to ask ourselves, even beyond like the cool tools that I talk about on a regular basis.
I feel like it's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're generating more data now than we ever have ever, and we're using that to train those models, then you can't go back to the source because we've already outdated all of that learning model from what we've generated already. So I think it's one of those we'll see questions of like, we'll have to just experience it and find out what actually happens.
Yeah, and it's going to be really important. I mean, AJ, you know, this is something I talk about a lot in my keynotes, that we kind of lean into those kind of human skills, right? Like our relationships are more important. Face-to-face stuff does absolutely matter. We nurture relationships. So as much as I'm such an advocate of using AI and integrating AI and using it for productivity, at the same time, I feel like we just have to be better humans as well. And that might insulate us a little bit from this death trap that we are moving towards. Wait, this got dark. It is after dark, so I could be dark, right?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry. I try to be happy and sunny, but I just end up at this point with every conversation. I don't know.
I'm going to change the name of the show to Doom and Gloom, and we're all going to die with Amber back.
Yes, that's the effect I have. You know, I feel like I'm really optimistic, but sometimes I'm listening to myself and I'm thinking, this is the least optimistic thing I've ever said.
It seems like a good time to transition to the hotline.
It's a very good point, Steve. So hang with us. We are going on to our next segment, and we're going to ask you questions from the audience.
Let's eavesdrop on the BA hotline and see what provocative project problems are awaiting us. Is your project in hot water? Operators are standing by. Ooh, that's hot.
All right, we're back.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because you guys are playing that where she's like, it's kind of this sexy voice. And then Chris in our studio has a camera on our dog who's just walking away, of course, because I mentioned his name. And it felt weird all at once.
Yeah, there's a lot of entertaining. I can watch everybody's faces during that, right? So I've had several guests just sit there like shaking their head the entire time, like my face is going to be on this. And what did I just do? What did I commit to?
All good. It's all good. You guys do, like I said, you do a great job of all of the production side of things. So I love to see that.
Thanks. It's a lot of fun. So yes, now we get to ask questions, and we do have questions lined up for you. The first
question was submitted through the website. What do you think about the future of ChatGPT and the launch of the ChatGPT store?
So I actually don't know that much about the ChatGPT store in terms of the types of things that it's going to offer. I just would assume that anything they do at this point is going to be massively successful. I think ChatGPT is coming out with its 5th iteration in the next few months. So, and everybody's using it. So anything they do on the storefront, I think will be massively popular. So it will be a win. You know, they've been the one that's been able to break through, and it's now kind of a household name. And I think people of all ages think about ChatGPT a little bit like you think about Google, right? So ChatGPT store makes a lot of sense.
I know that they're building that out so that way you can build your own chatbots.
Yeah.
And then you can have a question. And I know Microsoft has their own tool for that. It was called Power Virtual Agents, and now they've changed it to be under the Copilot umbrella. But you could build your own virtual agent or your own question and answer, and then have that search through any sort of knowledge-based articles or documentation that you have as an organization. So I can totally see where that would be helpful to anybody that has their own website. That I've got a question about, let's say, social media, and I wanted to ask you, but then you could have content from your books, content from that you've created, video content that you could just populate that very quickly without having to build out the whole idea, right?
Yeah, and I feel that people are already starting to do that on a pretty significant scale, right? I mean, I already know lots of authors who are and podcasters who are integrating chatbots into their websites. So I think within the store, I mean, I think with ChatGPT too, you talk about virtual assistants or agents, but there could be lots of other things that they put in that store, right? I talk about building quizzes with my son. It's not a seamless process right now to do that within ChatGPT. I've got to sort of use other form builders and other tools. So you can imagine a store, how robust that would be, and all of the options you would have. It reminds me a little bit. I don't know if you guys use Jasper. Have you used Jasper before?
So I've played around with it. It is a little outside my price zone for some of the tech tools that I've got. Just I didn't need it as much as the cost was to.
Oh,
right.
it's astronomical, right? I mean, it is sort of it is kind of, the pricing is more like an enterprise tool than anything. And I think when you go into it, it reminds me almost like a storefront, because you just have all of these little plugins or tools that you can use for creating advertisements, for creating custom images. The list goes on and on. So I feel like it's just the kind of natural evolution for ChatGPT.
I do use a lot of the Adobe tools, and so they have their own. I think it's called Firefly, so their own generative AI, which is it's kind of like the DALL-E model, right? Where it's going to create its own visual content for you. So I've used that quite a bit, and I know that Microsoft has their own tool as well called Microsoft Designer. You can use that for visual content to have that create me a video, or not video, but a image of, and then whatever you describe.
Yeah, and it's funny. I use a lot of those different tools that exist in terms of creating images, but I've never actually used, maybe a couple of times, but maybe in keynotes, but I rarely use the images that I create. Like I tinker more than I actually rely on the output of some of those tools, because I find it can be, Chris and I were playing with some tools recently and trying to create an image for something I was doing in my newsletter, and it just didn't work. Like it was all of the images that were being created they were just weird. Like it's odd.
That uncanny valley, right? Where you've got either 10 fingers, and they're all like this, or
Yeah, like I would put in prompts that I thought, hey, this is a pretty good prompt, and then I would use AI to improve the prompt, right, naturally, and then something would be outputted from that prompt that, like, well, it wasn't even close to what I was asking. Like we're still so far off there. Like it's fun to experiment and see how fast it is and use them, but I haven't found a practical scenario where I really depend on that the way I would with like back to Opus Clips or other tools in my day to day.
I did blow my. Let me rephrase that. That sounded weird. No, so my great uncle, I was showing him some of the AI tools, and it just kind of blew his mind a little bit with what we could create, because he wanted a picture of, it was like a Buick Skylark on a cabin by a lake, right? Because that was one of his favorite memories, etc. And I said, oh yeah. So I typed that in and it showed it, and it looked like photo real at that point. So
Wow.
that one was really good. But when you get humans involved, that's where it gets a little bit awkward.
Yeah. And you just all of a sudden start to realize like how crappy the input must be, because sometimes I'll ask for an image of a woman and I'll get like a 4-year-old, and then I'm just like, I don't want to know how this all happened or came to be. Right? It is there's a bit of a gap there, I think, in terms of it being something that day to day is useful.
And when it comes up with an image that's close, but you want to tweak just a little bit, you put in a prompt to try to change something, and it just goes all over the place.
Yeah. You're like, you have something where let's say, okay, I want a moonscape, and I want sort of an orange color in the background, and then you'll say like less orange, and then it will turn it like completely green. Just what are you doing? So you could do an entire show just on like prompts and what happens. Like, just I'm sure there is one out there on YouTube.
So I will add that as the next segment. But before we go on, we do have one more question too. So what about AI regulation in healthcare? Who's responsible if AI misdiagnoses a condition?
Well, I think that the healthcare space is obviously ripe right now for AI in terms of recognizing that healthcare is in crisis in so many parts of the world. We know that on the heels of the pandemic, that there are issues with capacity, there are issues with resources. So AI, I think, can play a really, really important and critical role in healthcare. But on the diagnosis side, I mean, that's where it's most interesting. Like, we've all seen the stats as far as being able to use AI software to detect common cancers like breast cancer, for example, with incredible accuracy compared to the human eye. These are things that we need right now in our society. But I think you've brought up a really good point. You know, who's responsible if the output isn't accurate? And I think that's where many healthcare organizations will have to have real strong governance around artificial intelligence. And they'll also always have to be that human in the mix to kind of do that second layer of review and examination. So to me, it feels like AI can help a lot with capacity, can help a lot with scanning and determining certain issues like cancers, but it doesn't mean that we don't have radiologists and doctors anymore. Sure. They'll still be important, but their capacity perhaps will be greater, and that means more people will be seen, and that will be less of a burden on what is in many places already a crumbling healthcare system. So I think it's worth trying to figure out those challenges, because I think the benefits within healthcare are hugely beneficial.
I could also see that being used as a secondary check itself, right? So if you write down a dosage of a medicine, like, oh, nope, that's lethal, let's not do that, right? So having that be a secondary check and go behind the scenes of somebody else and say, are you sure you want to give that to this person?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It's sort of that extra set of eyes. If you guys watch, you probably already have, in terms of some of the early announcements. I had mentioned this before at CES in Las Vegas, and you'll notice in the healthcare space, like, it blew me away even in the past day to see what Withings had just launched. There was another at-home test. I think it was like a UTI test. There's all of these really advanced medical tests and technologies that are coming into a consumer's home to allow them to have the power of health within their own hands. That means that, could you potentially go to see a doctor and say to them, hey, here's all my data for my HRV, my heart rate over the past few years, urine samples, blood samples. I mean, we're just not that far off, right? And that's going to change the game a lot, especially for preventative care. And that could be a good thing. But it does beg the question of who's responsible if you get it wrong. I wouldn't necessarily want to be one of those companies that was in this space.
We may never have to leave the house again, just in a few short years. That's it. Just
yes, because we won't want to, because of all the deep fakes and the lack of trust. Well, we won't trust anyone.
Actually, isn't that to actually get out of the house?
Yeah, it would. I mean, I think I think the face-to-face stuff will be probably more important in the future, right?
I agree.
If I can't touch it and know it's there in front of me, do I know it's real?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
and just shared experiences, right? You can't really, I mean, I like being on my computer and being at home, and I certainly don't need to be out around a lot of people all the time, but I still go to movies because it's kind of it's a shared experience, right? And you can't replicate that at home, right? I think there's lots of examples of why, as humans, we still need those shared experiences.
That's the one thing that I actually would take and put it in my house and just do that. So the movie scenario, but having a conversation with you at dinner, that we couldn't do, right?
Well, have you seen the Taylor Swift movie?
I've not.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you, the reason I was thinking about experience is because I went with my son and his friend to go see that movie. And of course, it's basically a 3-hour long concert of Taylor Swift. It's one of her concerts, of course, on her Eras tour. And the movie, you go into the theater and it was like, I'd never experienced anything like this. So you sit down and everything's kind of normal for a second. And then like these dozens and dozens of young girls get up and move to the front of the theater. And then they're screaming and dancing for the entire film. And it was just a very joyful experience and very fun. And I thought, this is kind of nice, right? That shared experience. So when I say shared experiences in terms of movies, that one is the one that kind of stuck in my head.
Well, we have different definitions of joy.
Come on. Next time you come to Toronto, we'll go see it.
It sounds kind of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of
Yeah,
experience.
exactly. I mean, when you're surrounded by other people who are sort of happy and free and dancing and having fun, and young people who are so optimistic, it's a nice contrast in my life to like 5 minutes on Twitter. I enjoy it.
5 minutes
I
on
think
Twitter.
it's time for the next segment. So thank you very much. If you do have any questions for future guests, make sure that you go to analystsafterdark.com and submit your inquiry to the BA hotline. And then you can ask your own question and we can ask our guests to chime in. That takes us to the next segment. Not that one.
And now it's time for BA Confessions.
All right. BA Confessions. This is generally where we would share content around any sort of mistakes that we might have had using, in this case, AI, but the topic of the afternoon or the evening, being able to share, I've tried this before and it completely bombed.
Here's what not to do.
Yeah, that is a very good question. I'm trying to think. Wow, I feel like that's kind of every day for me. I mean, there's always something that isn't working with some tool that I'm trying to incorporate on a regular basis. So I got to think about this. Would you guys have anything offhand that you want to share?
Well, I've had a situation where I was using AI. It was for a virtual conference and it was for a game.
Okay.
So we were trying to come up with a game where you create a whole bunch of like a slide deck that no one's seen, and then they have to present on slides that they've never seen, and you'd be able to show those, and then now you show the presenter, and then you go from there.
Okay.
So I use an AI tool to generate slides from all over the web, and you saw some really weird stuff, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yes,
well, I had about 10 different decks, and this was about an hour because we had someone drop out, so we had to come up with something. So we had someone drop out, and we were trying to scramble to come up with content. So I had about an hour to do this, and I have 10 different decks, and I'm going through. Well, I load up the first one, and then it shows a bunch of like World War II carnage and Holocaust imagery and things like that. And I was, oh, yeah, no, we're going to change this real quick. And so I'm scrambling to delete those slides as it's going through because it found literally any slide from any presentation anywhere. And so there's a lot of not safe for work content that was being displayed and I'm just trying to in real time edit that before someone can
my gosh
get on it. So yeah, so that was my AI failure or learning curve real quick.
Wow, that's a nightmare. I have to tell you that beyond AI, I never do live demos. When I first started speaking, I would sometimes do live demos and it never went well. Something bad always happens. So now I think pre-recording everything is always kind of key in terms of any visuals. But I understand the benefits of wanting to do some of this live, but you just never really know what you're going to get, right? That's the thing. It's just completely unpredictable. So I can't think of a specific confession in terms of using AI when things were terribly wrong. I kind of share that story of ChatGPT and the quiz. And, I thought I was a genius, and it was pretty clear that I wasn't mom of the year because my son's like, I know the answers. These are all B. It's a pattern. And I definitely blamed ChatGPT for that one.
What's fair?
But that is a pretty good one.
It is. It just, that's the thing, right? Like it just, there's limitations there, right? And it doesn't have that sort of human filter that I think all of us, most of us at least, do have.
Well, loosely.
Yeah,
Loosely.
Value of
Loosely.
QA.
Yes, that's fair. Loosely. But I think we have it more so than maybe some of the ChatGPT tools. But who knows? I mean, if you think about the future 5-10 years down the road, if we were to have this exact same conversation, I mean, just think about how much more advanced it's all going to get, right?
I can't wait. I can't wait for those conversations, because it's going to be so interesting to see just, widespread failure.
Yeah.
in those, just because it's any new technology, right? It's anything that comes out, you always find out, oh yeah, I didn't know it could do that. And then it's searching through everything, or it shares somebody else's personal details, or it does, something very embarrassing in a live situation. And you're like, well, I didn't plan for that because I didn't know that it could do that.
Well, and think about, I mean, in talking about confessions, but think about some of the startups, right? Like the AI startups that don't have governance on their roadmap, right? And they're just, maybe in a part of the world where there's just not a lot of ethical considerations around what you're doing, and think about that technology in the wrong hands and how poorly things can go, right? I think we're kind of underestimating what's going to happen in that respect, right? We're all like, okay, OpenAI, Microsoft, like the big players that are out there right now, but the future isn't necessarily just about them. There's going to be potentially thousands and thousands of smaller companies that make their way into the lives of the average person. And who knows what happens when their privacy is not protected? Who knows what happens when, they don't give consent to do something, but the AI decides to do it anyway? I mean, there's just so many layers of issues. See, I went dark again. It was supposed to be fun. I'm sorry. Let's get back to having fun.
All right. Well, check out analystsafterdark.com to submit your own BA confessions. So if you have items that you've shared with AI, or just anything in general that you want to share regarding, anonymously, companies or organizations that you've worked with, here's how we have just absolutely bombed. We'd love to hear those stories and then just get a laugh from those as well. So then that takes us to last call of the evening.
Yep.
Last call. So now this is where you get to shine a little bit and you get to talk about yourself. So as we go in to the last few minutes, Amber, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been so much fun. And even the doom and gloom stuff was a little bit fun.
Even so, yeah. I mean, it is fun to think about our AI future and the consequences of that. But thank you guys so much for having me on. I love all of the segments, all the work that you've put into the show. It is a super fun hour, and I'm just happy to join you and chit chat in kind of a more open form, and most importantly, have fun, because that's what this show is all about.
You have your own newsletter, right? That you send out, is it every other week?
It's every Tuesday. So it's at ambermac.com/newsletter, and super easy to sign up. I just did my annual tech trends report. If you do sign up now, you can still get a link to that in next week's issue. So if people want to sign up, that's really helping people to stay on top of all things that are happening on the AI and emerging technology front.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. And then you also have 2 books out, right? One is talking about social media and getting into some of the content creation and why you need to use it and some of the benefits of that. And then the other one is how to safeguard individuals and your children from the internet itself.
Yes, and they're both so outdated, you should not buy them. Just to be clear.
Fair.
Be very, very careful about buying technology books because it's moving too quickly. But they each had their own short and vibrant run. And what I realized after that, not to say I will never write another tech book again, but I think it's a frustrating process because of the fast pace of our world today. And it will be especially hard in the AI space to write a book about AI. I'm more into the podcasting, newsletter, all of those types of content.
I actually was reading it, and there's a lot of content in here regarding, so Twitter has come out and it's done this, and it was one of those things that now it's changed dramatically since your book came out.
Yeah.
And
dramatically, like I probably wrote things such as, and if you have an issue, you can put in a report and then that person will get, removed from the site. None of those things are true anymore. Now you're on your own. I cannot help you. Okay. God bless.
Good luck. Well, thank you so much, Amber. This has been great. Steve, do you want to talk about our next show?
Our next show is coming in 2 weeks, and I did not prepare for this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus. So next show is on January 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about data and data analytics with our friend Nash Bober. And so that's going to be a great episode where he gets to go into the details and we get to actually, I don't know if we get our hands on any data, but we'll talk a lot about different data elements. So thank you very much. This has been Analysts After Dark. We appreciate you and have a great night.
Bye, buddy.